Thank you for joining us this morning, as I am very pleased to report that there has been recent movement in the painted turtle nest, species Chrysalis picta. They have hatched and now face the difficult decision as to whether or not they should emerge from their nests. It is the only home they have ever known, so it is a very hard decision for these turtles. But why? Well, shortly they will face the terrible times of winter. That's right, the dreaded season that causes animals all sorts of trouble as they seek to maintain their bodily temperature, the efforts of which results in new, creative ways to deal with the presented challenge physiologically, as well as in a behavior known as overwintering. Overwintering is, simply put, the behavior an animal undergoes to survive the winter. To keep us up to date with the overwintering habits of our newly hatched turtles, we have expert Sarah to answer some questions. So Sarah, how do our lovely painted turtles survive the winter?
Well, that is actually a wonderful question, and one that has yet to be answered by the scientific society. The problem is, a single population of turtles can have various overwintering behaviors. For our painted turtles, this becomes a question of emerging during the fall or during the spring, and their response varies even within a single population.
I see. Are we any closer to determining the reason for this split in overwintering behavior?
Well, actually, I, clearly being a very astute expert in painted turtles, recently read an article from the Journal of Experimental Biology, which completely, not coincidentally at all, answers this very question. This research team asked 4 different questions. 1. How do the environmental factors of the nest influence overwintering behaviors? 2. Does one particular type of overwintering in the fall, which would correspond to an aquatic environment, or in the spring, which would correspond to an in-nest overwintering, offer more benefit to the baby painted turtle? 3. What are the risks of wintering in an aquatic environment versus in the nest, and vice versa? And 4. Do the parents hold any influence whatsoever over how the young overwinter?
Simply fascinating. But what did they find?
Well, to answer that, let's turn to a very special population of painted turtles and see how they respond to their new situation.
Donatello.
Michelangelo.
Raphael.
Leonardo. Good to be out of that egg, huh, Michelangelo?
You betcha.
What are we gonna do now?
I don't know, but it sure is getting cold outside. We better decide quickly.
Yeah, we are pretty small. That means our tiny little bodies won't be able to stay heated very well during winter.
Feels pretty good to be out of the egg, doesn't it, Raphael?
It's not like I've heard that one before.
Well, what are we going to do now? As the Stark turtles say, winter is coming.
Well, we are pretty big. It may be better for us to just stay here. Our bodies are big, which means we can withstand the chill of winter.
Face it, we are too small, Donatello. We aren't going to be able to survive with this much meat on our bones. We better get more storage so we can have more energy for the winter.
What does this nest look like? Well, we're pretty flat. That means we shouldn't have to worry about falling out anytime soon.
That's good news. What else is out there?
Well, it seems pretty full of plants. That means that we have plenty of insulation.
Well, I guess we should stay here.
Yeah.
Donatello, there's nothing on the ground over here to help keep the heat inside. That means we will have even less heat this winter.
We might run the slight risk of falling out of our nest.
You know, you can only tilt an object so much before it slips. It's not very likely.
But it could happen. Even though it is more likely to happen to something like a sea turtle.
Silly sea turtles, they can't even stay in their nest.
Don't laugh at them, we can't either. Come on, Donatello.
So what did we just see there?
What we saw was two nests of a single population of painted turtles. Because Michelangelo and Donatello are in a tilted nest and don't have any plant life around them, they are more likely to fall out of their nests and also are less insulated. Whereas our other two friends are not at risk of falling out and are very well insulated. The researchers found there was a slight influence of these factors on our turtle friends.
What was this talk of body size?
Well, that actually plays into the second question of the researchers. It turns out that smaller turtles need to leave the nest, and so they emerge in the fall to winter in the water because they need to build up energy to last the winter months, whereas a larger turtle has no need of that and then therefore decides to winter inside the nest.
Let's see what happens next.
Let's do it.
Donatello! Stop! Don't eat that! It's sarcophagic larvae. They're poisonous. If you eat that, you'll die. And it's a good thing we left our nest because they're everywhere and we have no way to protect ourselves from them.
Yuck!
Sure glad we have all these plants around us. That means we're not in danger of the sarcophagic larvae attacking us.
Yeah, I don't know what super turtle would even get near those things.
Well, what are we gonna do now?
We should definitely find food before we head off to the marsh.
I'm so glad we decided to stay in our nest this winter.
So much easier than going out and foraging. The temperature is so stable in here, although it's a little chilly. My ninja painted turtle senses tell me it never goes below -4 degrees Celsius.
I hate the weather here. It's either really warm or really cold. I think it's -4 right now.
I told you we should have stayed in our nest.
But with our size, our environment, and all those larvae, I don't think we could have. It's so hard to breathe here too.
I know, the percent oxygen is only 2.1%, or it's really high at 95%. I wish it were more stable.
Our nest would have been more stable, but we definitely made the right decision.
And the air in here is great. There is about 20.6 to 21.2% oxygen level, which is just like being outside.
Now you know that.
Don't question my turtle senses.
How remarkable. So do parental habits play a role too?
Well, funny you should mention that because I just so happen to have their mother on the phone right now.
Well, let's call her in.
Hello, Mrs. Teenage Mutant Painted Turtle. I am here on the I Love Turtles Today show with news anchor Vicky, and we have some questions for you about the clutch you just laid this season. Well, your two clutches seem to have behaved differently this winter. One clutch has engaged in aquatic wintering behavior, while the second has engaged in nest behavior. Scandalous! Well, that makes sense because the researchers found that clutches with a different father engaged in different overwintering behaviors, and those of the same parents engaged in the same behaviors.
Is that saying there is a correlation?
It seems so, and is certainly an area of interest for future research. Thank you, Mrs. Teenage Mutant Painted Turtle.
And there you have it. There is the remarkable saga of the mutant painted turtle family and their quest to survive the winter.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half shell, turtle power, they're the world's most fearsome fighting team.
We're really hip.
They're heroes in the half shell, and they're green.
Hey, get a grip.
When the evil shredder attacks, these turtle boys don't cut them no slack. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Splinter taught them.
And go.
here we see the sprawling movement